children have unique needs and vulnerabilities. Children are at the forefront of datification. We say that a child born this year will have more data accumulated about them than a similar child born last year, meaning that, a child born this year in Kenya in a given family will have, even before birth, more data accumulated about them than their siblings born maybe last year or a couple of years ago. Think about the information that hospitals exchange before birth. Think about, pictures or ultrasounds, images that parents post on social media even before birth. Yet in all this data, children have less agency. They often depend on other people's consent to participate in programs and systems that might collect and generate data about them. Yet, when maybe they turn 18, and legally speaking, they become adults, they become also responsible for everything that has been um, collected and is out there about them. Add a layer of complexity, there's more and more use of data technologies such as AI, and we know now that algorithmic bias can push children towards a given direction, preventing them from exploring different selves and really embracing their childhood as they should. Now, if you add on top of this the sort of humanitarian context, data and tech is not always fit for purpose. Today, there's more children and young people in need of humanitarian assistance than at any other time since the Second World War. And to bolster vital and crucial services provided to children, humanitarian organizations, but also governments are increasingly leveraging data and data technologies such as AI. And the problem is that these systems are often designed with adults, sometimes consenting adults, but mainly adults, most of the times without even adults' consent, but with adults in mind, without a focus on what children's needs could be, which youth interests could be, and so on and so forth. If you're interested in going deeper in this topic, I drafted an article a couple of years ago with Roxana Radu called Not Child's Play, Protecting Children's Data in Humanitarian AI Ecosystems, that goes a little bit deeper on the topic. But so the norm here is that there's a vast amount of data that is collected about children and about young people, often without their knowledge, um, and often without their consent. And it's not necessarily benefiting them. And on the contrary, these data and data technologies can expose them to new risks, especially in humanitarian settings. By the way, in programs and systems that are supposedly meant to protect them. And so the dry reality is that communities are facing a number of challenges right now. We know that climate change is worsening heat waves. Financial assistance was and will continue to be cut. And in all this, among some of the most affected people, farmers, only 3% of African farmers have insurance coverage, which leaves them vulnerable to crop failures, but also financial ruin. And of course, as all of us know in the child protection sector, when communities or parents are affected, children, and in particular, if you think about Kenya in ASALs, in arid and semi-arid lands, children are disproportionately exposed to harmful coping strategies. Children are maybe not sent to school anymore. They have to start working, or children cannot go to school anymore because they had to leave their lands and they're on the move, etc. And so the norm here somehow nowadays is that our current systems accept reactive aid and chronic precarity as normal, as a norm, which forces families and ultimately children to absorb the shocks of a worsening climate crisis. And the third challenge I would like to highlight here, which is more related to young people than children, so maybe age 15 and above throughout the 20s, relates to unfair AI labor. We know now that big tech companies rely heavily on African data workers. think about content moderators, annotators, etc., who play really a vital role in shaping very lucrative AI systems. Yet these workers are often underpaid and they have zero recognition for their contribution. And also, they can face mental health risks depending on the topics they cover. And so, this reality really reveals the deep inequities embedded in both digital labor and also workforce practices across the global AI value chain. So the norm here is that the global AI economy is extractive, which reinforces digital colonialism, where African youth, power, and innovation without seeing the color of the benefits, without benefiting from it. So the solution we are offering is one that tries to address some of these challenges and shift the norms that have allowed these challenges to be pervasive. Before I get to the details of the initiative, I would like to give a perfect illustration of what led us to it, and it's madenge. If you're Kenyan, you know what madenge is. It's an evergreen plant that is inedible by livestock, and people have come up with all sorts of ideas to figure out how to use it because it's quote unquote useless from the livestock perspective. So from developing baskets, I think I saw also a few initiatives with soap and whatnot. And anyway, so on insurance, we talked to used satellite imagery to basically detect whether a land is either green or dirt color, so maybe brown or red in Kenya. But as Madinga is evergreen, it means that the triggers set to send payouts when there's a drought don't work properly because it sees green and assumes there cannot be a drought with this amount of green. And at this point, if you remember, there's only 3% of African farmers who are insured. The few farmers who have paid for the insurance and don't receive the payout when there's a drought because the AI said the land is green, all good, then they might be annoyed and lose trust in the insurance. And those who were not reactive humanitarian aid, we shift to anticipatory and locally led work. And to how it impacts children and young people, this approach has a two-pronged strategy, i.e., both working both with and for children and young people. On the one hand, for children and young people by focusing on communities and farmers, the more macro level, because by stabilizing income through AI enhanced and community governed systems, we want to reduce the likelihood that families will resort to um, harming coping strategies, as mentioned earlier. And by ensuring that communities somehow continue to function and thrive throughout climate shocks, it ensures that children can also continue to function and thrive. They can continue to go to school, they can continue to enjoy their childhood, etc. So in this case, though I'm a big fan of participatory approaches with children, as I said, I worked in child and youth engagement a lot throughout my career. In this case, the idea is not necessarily to engage with children, but instead to strengthen the ecosystem around them to ensure that their childhood can run smoothly. And as such, there is no need to collect more data from them, which means that in a way, it's a sort of data minimization approach from this perspective. And on the other hand, we also work with young people directly as data stewards and AI validators. The African Institute for Children's Studies, ICE, as I mentioned, they play really a crucial role in this initiative, has more than 600 community-based enumerators across all counties in Kenya. And a lot of these are young people. They can collect all the missing data to be integrated to existing public-private data sets for model training. They can validate real-time AI predictions. They can document and correct cases. They can validate farmers' pictures. They can provide a sort of continuous monitoring on the ground of the model performance and so forth. So really provide the data and tech expertise that are needed to strengthen a model, but it can do it in a way that really corresponds to the local realities, what happens on the ground. And they can also be the sort of soundboard from a cultural standpoint. They can take the pulse with the community and be the trusted middle agents between the community and, in this case, the insurance, but whoever requires the data. They can verify local regulations. ICE is a certified uh, and authorized by the Kenya Authority on Data Protection, and so forth. So the idea is also really to work with young people, not only to equip them with new skills, but also really to shift the norm from a despised and depreciated job to a quintessential and value adding job for tech. And by doing this, they can not only get paid, it's a job opportunity, but also be those humans in the loop that are direly needed to ensure that the models are accurate and that they answer people's needs and interests in a given context. So, really positioning children and young people both as recipients and co creators of technologies that respond to local realities and are uplifting instead of being extractive. And so, lastly, if you're interested in going deeper a little bit on some of the topics that I mentioned in the presentation, check out the work of these people. I'm a big fan of naming and faming, and there's really some inspirational work that is done. On the right, three Kenyans, Wakenya Watatu, Mugambi Laibuta. He's big in data privacy and governance, including for children. I had the pleasure of working with him in UNICEF. Mofato Kini, he's a huge advocate for the fair treatment and rights of data and tech workers, especially in Kenya. Angela Odor, she's a superstar. She's very passionate about building technologies that help marginalized groups. And on the left, not Kenyans, but equally important, Bill Hoffman. Hoffman, the founder of LEAD, he has really a very deep and extensive experience in emerging technology governance, and he's also a very exquisite human being. Sam can attest. And Roxana Radu, that I mentioned earlier, she co authored the article that I mentioned, and she's an associate professor at the University of Oxford. So with that, back to the room if you have any questions, if the mic works today, otherwise maybe in the chat. But regardless, if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out on LinkedIn as well. So over to the room. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eugenia. Can we have Makofi? Even more, before we take the question, something that stood out for me even, but it's outside the topic a little bit, is the fact that there was a photo of children and you could not see their faces. I think that's something that we practice a lot and we should continue practicing. Yes. But as we'll take three questions for this session.
voice. Hello.
The voice. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Eugenia. I think really you helped paint a picture which I don't know how familiar we are with this, but we know for sure that data is very critical. Um, Beyond creating new opportunities in terms of preparing us for response and, you know, preparedness in terms of climate shocks that will come in, it is very, very critical. And I think the whole thing of also turning it around and helping it to respond to unemployment crisis, which is emerging out of the same data challenges, or I mean climate shocks, is really a critical point. And what has been missing in conversation like amongst us who are critical in building resilience. So think about insurance and agriculture. In a very agribusiness or agri-driven economy like most of as they are in Africa, it becomes very urgent that we must think about how do we work with communities to ensure that they feed us the data, you know, the whole thing around nothing for us without us, whether it's for children or the community members. But even more importantly, how do we then position all this data and information to be ethically used? You know, that people are not just collecting data and moving away. I've worked in programs that have shipped a lot of data. I know some of you colleagues here will be very aware. I don't want to mention some programs, but I've been in a project that is tracking food security. Weekly data on food prices being collected by an agency. I don't even think our government is collecting that. But how does that data get back and support its own community? Who pays for those who engage in that data and enumeration? And so I think there's going to be need for our governments to be very deliberate, community groups to be very deliberate in creating a macro system that will support that. So thank you, Eugenia. I just wanted to add to that. But good job. We're grateful to collaborate with you.
Thank you, Samuel. Can we get a clap for Samuel for the addition? Do we have any questions or additions? Okay, then a little bit about the presentation. The presentation started with data and the fact that most of the time we are not really aware of, even when we post our children's photos online, we're not really aware of the implications. It talks about how data can lead to vulnerability, particularly for people in Africa, and the fact that normally we train AI through the tasks that are available online. But then most of the time it's under exploitative aspects. And then it has also gone on to look at some adaptations that have been done by insurance companies on checking how well, for instance, AI can do mathematical models for insurance risks. And they found that for one of the cases that she was sharing on the Madenge plant, we found that the Madenge was mapped as vegetation, even though it was a drought area and Madenge is not edible. So then that led to a situation where the claims were not triggered as a result of that, because then the satellite will still see the plant, but the plant is not edible. So then the insurance payouts were not coming in, and so it led to distrust of insurance. So it found a way that, yes, data was being used to mitigate climate shocks, but then it was not working in that instance. Then she has called on a solution being implemented by ICS, where they've already trained 600 plus youths across the country. So maybe ICS will be able to introduce them to us so that we can also know them and ask for guidance from them whenever we need support on AI matters. Because the data annotator jobs, data trainer jobs are available online. Whenever you go online, that's what you see, so it's already available. Then we can know how to be safe around it. Then it also calls on how then can the government take up this to be able to avert humanitarian crisis across the country so that you can make it better for children, even as we operate. As I wind up, I'd like to still take you to the other photo that was there, and the fact that in the course of our work, I think those people working in the humanitarian field or NGOs, you found that we have moved away from showing children in need of support to sometimes not showing children at all. So that's some of the good practices I can see here, that even though the children were there, decently dressed, but their faces were not being shown. Because then that face will still be available in the future, so we need to always be carrying that wherever we go. I'd like to thank you for giving us your ear right after lunch, and I also like to thank you, Eugenia, for joining us all the way from Italy and for allowing us to learn from you. Thank you so much. Can we give a round for Eugenia?
Thank you so much for having me.
Uh,
Also, we should hire you for the pitch because you said in 1 minute what took me 15 or 20 to say. So well done for recapping. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We can talk. We can talk behind the tent. That's a phrase that we use here. And thank you. I'd like to hand over to the co-chair to take us through the next process.
Asante sana, Eugenia. Thank you. I think we are not too badly off on time. Is it? Oh, we have 3 minutes to be in the next breakout sessions. So I will just remind us of the rooms. And sorry, I think there's just one more correction on the room arrangement. So as we go into, actually the last of our abstract presentations, tomorrow will be more dealing with workshops and keynote speakers. As we leave here, just want to be sure I'm in the right page. Okay. So there will be a workshop here by the Consortium for Imagining Humanitarian Action. I'll be moderating that session. So if you're interested in understanding how you can operationalize localization, the concept of localization to enhance efficiency in climate-induced humanitarian situation, beyond rhetorics. So remain in this hall. There are just 2 other breakout rooms. So on page 15 of your program, at the bottom, there is a group that includes Jared Muyonga, Stacy Njeri, and John Kiama. I'm reading the authors, and Dr. Bernard Lango. Kindly you proceed to D23. So up the auditorium, turn left. Then the other breakout room will be turn right. D11, there we'll have a presentation around how communities can engage by Janet Nyangweso, June Washira, and Sholefello. Okay, yes. That's it. Okay. So let's proceed. The guidance beyond that is you can be done at around 4:30, depending on how engaging it is for you. There will be tea and coffee served next to your rooms and also down here. And after that, you're free to leave. And we meet here tomorrow for 2 keynote speakers, 2 workshops, including how you can make money. Who wants to be rich when you leave this conference? So please, tomorrow there's going to be a special workshop, a master class on fundraising with the shift that is happening. USAID and many other groups are closing. How else do we raise money for this humanitarian work? So don't miss that out. And of course, there'll be a session on that. So tomorrow we begin at 8. Okay, we'll do a recap and then proceed on to the 2 keynote speakers. Keynote number 7, Pauline, and number 8, Gloria, and go into the workshop. So enjoy yourself, keep networking, share contacts. Let's make a smile, give smiles to children. Enjoy yourself. See you. So the team that is leading the consortium, please come over so that those who want to listen to your workshop and engage can begin. Asanteni sana. Where is Stanley? So again, so Stanley and Anthony will lead us in this conversation. I'll be moderating. I know what they're doing because I've been part of that journey, so I could chip in some voice to it. But I want them to come over. You ready? You want to connect?
Hello. For those going out, we'll give you 5 minutes. But then we urge you to remain to be in this session. Okay. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, we'll begin. This is going to be one of the most interesting sessions as we are going to discuss practical actions in relation to humanitarian actions, moving from stories to actionable items. So I'm Stanley Okoth. I work at the African Institute for Children Studies. Basically what I do, positioning myself to coordinate networks. At the African Institute for Children Studies, we have different networks both at the regional level and at the national level. At the regional level, we have the Consortium of Reimagining Humanitarian Action, abbreviated as CRHA. At the national level, we have Children Agenda Forum, which I believe most of you here are part of it. Children Agenda Forum advocates for child-specific indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals. With my colleague here is Anthony Onyaga. We work closely together supporting programs at the African Institute for Children Studies. So to begin this session, I'll request one thing. Just as I promised, this is going to be one of the most interesting sessions. In that, we are going to talk all of us, not just listen. So allow me play some interesting videos. I know that we are coming from lunch, and today I don't see any entertainment around. So we go. And as they are playing the video, I request all of you to be keen. I have some gifts here for the most active participants.
Strong hands, fertile soil and water. A simple starter kit that will help many trees grow. It's part of a project here on the edge of the Kirisia forest in central Kenya that is putting the Samburu community at the heart of protecting their environment and also helping them earn a living.
The tree nurseries have been a real benefit to us. We can earn money, so we can pay school fees for our children, or we can start up businesses.
Traditionally semi-nomadic, the Samburu people sought out water and grazing land for their goats and cattle, their primary source of income. But dry, drought-prone conditions, made worse due to climate change, forced many to move into the forest. The community first made money chopping down trees and making charcoal instead. It destroyed around a third of the forest, putting both the people at risk and the water relied on across an otherwise arid Samburu region.
We were having to trek 5 kilometers to fetch water.
The Samburu families voluntarily left the forest. Funding from the government and NGOs helped the community adapt to their new reality, driven by global warming, and found an organisation to help protect the forest. As well as earning from seedlings they've planted so far, the community also earns around 30,000 euros a year from harvesting honey.
We've seen our problems and we say the best way to solve this problem is to move out of the forest, and we take care of our forest so that our forest can take care of us.
Slowly but surely, the flora and fauna are flourishing again, with help from a community learning to cope with change and to build a new future for themselves.
Thank you so much. As we can all see, we don't have the rights owning the video, but then we wanted to use it as one of our learning tools. So I said this session is gonna be quite engaging, so that we don't sleep. I know it's afternoon. We want to be active participants from the video. And I'm gonna give presents. What can we learn in our humanitarian work? Thank you so much. Any other mic that could? She was the first one,
Okay, Evelyn, and I think from the video, what we've watched is that fauna and flora are soon fading away, and I think our actions, our climate actions, like the things we're gonna do in our environments every day, like engaging in tree planting in order to save fauna, is going to impact the generations that will come.
Thank you so much, my sister. That was a good lesson. Anthony, you can give the gift. It's a very powerful tool that is going to be helpful. There's a hand there. Oh, she could go first, then him.
My name is Sheila Juma. From the video, I've learned that some of these ecological problems, the solutions are in our hands. And we do not need to wait for the government to come and solve them for us. Like, we just need to put in some effort, and all this might be prevented.
That was a good one. She tells us that we have solutions in our hands. We don't have to wait for some other people to bring solutions to us. And when she refers to us, she definitely means as the locals. Is that true? Thank you so much.
Yes, hi Stanley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Evans. The one thing that I've learned is that communities are not helpless. If we build their capacity, they can be agents of change and participate in climate, like adaptation to climate change.
Thank you so much, Evans. I hope we are all learning, and the whole responses are shifting towards the communities. One more last person, Anthony.
Thank you. My name is Simon. Yeah, from the video, we realized that human activities have caused a challenge, have posed a challenge to the environment. And it is good that they realize there is some damages they caused, and therefore they needed to be able to come out with a solution so that they can be able to have a ecosystem operational again. And through education and sensitization, they were able to reinstate to the previous situation in which they were. Thank you.
Thank you. I think what I'm learning from him is that when we empower our communities, we are able to come up with solutions that can provide actionable solutions to humanitarian actions. Thank you, and I think Anthony could give the last person, as then we proceed.
Thank you. I'm called Harriet Opoma from Busia County. Mine is from the observation from the short clip we have seen. I'll allude to a famous Bible verse from Exodus 4:2, where Moses was asked by God that what is in your hand? And Moses replied, I have a staff. So I say that we use whatever we have, because I've seen those women using some improvised bags to create seedlings, to make seedlings and to do afforestation. So I would say that you don't have to wait for people to come and help you, but whatever is available in your area, use it, and God will find you progressing.
That was a biblical response, and at some point I was like, I need to go back to my faith. Thank you, my sister, and we feel encouraged, and your response was very insightful. So, colleagues, like I told you, today we are going to look into issues of humanitarian crisis as we shift to creating real solutions other than just making stories. So there is a problem, and even from your responses, we can tell there is a huge crisis, and it's escalating. With local responders facing overwhelming challenges, increased occurrences of drought, floods, and displacements highlight the urgent need for localized action and support. Communities are often the first to respond to these crises. I think most of us were giving it to that if our communities are educated, then definitely we could provide solutions to these humanitarian crises. And most of the time, you realize that the capacities of these communities are not. The reality is, if we dig deeper into our locals, educate them, discuss these problems with them, then we are working towards creating the practical solutions to these humanitarian crises. And basically, what we do at ICCCP, we drive this localization agenda that will bring us together as local people, because we are the first-hand information, we are the people facing these problems, and there is a team somewhere, I could say in quotes, don't allow me get arrested here,
that are fighting this process. So we are going to dig deeper into that. So we are going to understand what localization is. And just to emphasize, localization would mean community leadership, empowering local entities to take charge during crisis. This approach ensures that responses are tailored to specific needs, enhancing effectiveness. Local funding mechanisms are crucial for rapid response. By prioritizing trust and speed, resources can be mobilized quickly, fostering dignity in the affected community, recovering efforts. That's when we come together as communities to fight for what is in need for us. So embracing localizations would mean recognizing the local voices, holding invaluable knowledge by fostering their collaboration and promoting the community-led initiatives. What we do at our community level. So as you came in into this discussion, we wanted to unpack the theme, and I'll take you to some of the key wordings of that theme. And to me, what stood out is understanding some words in that theme. We realized we had some words going by efficiency that would refer to the combination of speed and cost effectiveness critical in addressing climatic-induced crises that require immediate action and resources to support vulnerable communities during emergencies and recovery phases. Then moving beyond rhetoric means committing to tangible actions. It's about ensuring that promises translate into real support for local leaders and communities, empowering them to take charge in times of crisis. We are not just making stories, but we are working towards what can be actioned. I think after understanding that and having learned that there existed some problems, that's why we came up with CRHA. And I want you now to understand what we mean when we say CRHA. CRHA, like I said, would refer to a consortium. The consortium is called Consortium of Reimagining Humanitarian Actions. We operate in east and southern parts of Africa at the regional level. But then, recently, we had some urge just to bring in affiliate partners. Most of these partners are members of our Children Agenda Forum. Like I mentioned, Children Agenda Forum is a network of local organizations advocating for child-specific indicators of sustainable development goals. Currently, we are more than 190 organizations in Kenya. And they are locally based organizations. So back to CRHA, what it drives. One of them is impact in action. And it spans across networks in Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Mozambique. Then we basically strengthen the local leadership by empowering local leaders that are fast responders to these disasters. Then another key on research, the evidence-driven approaches. Through collecting and analyzing local evidence, we promote an informed understanding of climate crisis helping to tailor interventions that meet community needs. We operate under 7 pillars. The first one is leadership. We empower locals to drive initiatives forward. Then evidence, issues research, using data to support community decisions. Then advocacy, capacity building on our skills at the community levels. The other 3 pillars would explain why local leadership is efficient. And they are based on fast responses, lower cost, and building trust. We are in a governance structure, and normally the head structure is the steering committee that makes decisions of most of the operations in the consortium. Then the steering committee will flow down to the secretariat. The secretariat is the African Institute for Children's Studies, coordinating of members of the consortia. Then followed by the community groups. We have a community engagement technical working group. We have the evidence generation technical working group. Then the advocacy groups. Until then, I'll leave my colleague to proceed with the next session. Thank you so much.
Good after lunch. Good after lunch. Someone told me that you have to greet someone twice, you know, so that you get their attention. Thank you. So localization is an interesting conversation because it pertains to everything, our mere existence, and especially when we are referring to our existence as the global south. So I hope that we are all conversant with the global north and the global south, and that even as decisions are being made, then we have almost like a top-down approach, where decisions are made at the top on the global north. So this is the west generally. This is a bit confusing because I'm saying north, south, west. But we have certain barriers to localization, and I know we all know some of these barriers. Looking at the funding gap, and I know most of us are alive to the fact that funding has gone down, you know, and it is not just in Kenya, not just in Africa, but there seems to be a funding shift, you know. And this funding shift affects us a lot because then it touches on localization. It touches on our ability as the people on the ground to go and solve these problems that we have. So the funding gap limits local initiatives, and power imbalances hinder effective responses. So I'm talking about a top-down approach from the global north and the global south, and you have people in the global north not inviting as many people from the global south so that they make decisions on how funding is going to be used, how it is going to be used, and where it is going to be used. When we talk about localization and talking about barriers, then we also have to understand that in the humanitarian and development space, we are talking about living creatures, you know, human beings, you're talking about climate, you're talking about different things that touches on the lives, our lives and the lives of your neighbor, the lives of your friend, of your brother, your sister, your son and your daughter. And so we have to have a just-based approach where we think of people not just as numbers, but as people who are receiving a particular intervention. And so some of the things that we see is community-led efforts are neglected. How many of us have been in programs where you have come into a structure that has already been laid? You know, you did not have the opportunity to co-design whatever intervention you're going to be doing, you were just told that this is what is going to be done, and this is how you're going to do it, and these are the results that we want, you know. It is good for us to talk about money, because when you talk about money, you talk about the return on investment, you know. But then how do you measure the return of investment? You know, earlier on we were talking about you doing an intervention, you know, at a particular place, but you're only touching on one aspect of that. So I meet this kid on the street, and like many of us like doing, you may be from the supermarket and you give them, say, 10 shillings. You know, another gives them 50 shillings, and they're able to get their meal for the day. While we have sorted them for that day or for a few hours, we have not gone down to the root causes for us to see what is it that has put this kid on the street. You understand? And so we need, when we talk about localization and barriers to localization, then we have to look at it in a holistic way. The prevailing risk narrative can perpetuate a cycle of dependency, undermining local resilience and capacity for self-governance. Addressing these barriers is crucial for enhancing local capacity. I know we have many barriers to localization, and many of them we can't even talk about them today. But let me just mention a few. I've mentioned power imbalance. I've mentioned the funding gap. Let's also look at self-preservation. If you are this donor who is giving this money, you know, and you have a group of people called Anthony and Stanley sitting in the Kenya School of Government and talking about, oh, we need this money directly to this person, you know, then what you're essentially saying is you're killing a job somewhere, you know. And so one of the other barriers that we're seeing is some of these organizations are not willing to let go of that power, you know, the power to make decisions. I'm sure most of us will want to be in positions of power. And so we understand that that then becomes a challenge for us to move past. But you also have colonial and biased attitudes. You know, this is a systemic thing that has been happening across the world. We are not the first people to face it. Probably our fathers went through the same things, you know. And so we have a system that has been designed that decisions will be made at a particular point, and that point will not be at the community level. And so then, while we think about barriers to localization, then we need to also think about trust. What is making these organizations not be able to give you money? So we have a donor who has, say, 50,000 Kenya shillings, and they know for sure that there is a child somewhere who is hungry, you know. But then this donor may prefer, and I'm using my words carefully, so that then it brings out that this donor does not want to give directly to the community, but they will want to give this money to someone who they probably trust, you know, that I'm going to give you this 50,000. Okay, I know you're going to use some money for you to get to that place. So if you use the 40,000 on the children, that's okay with me, you know. And so what is then making these people not come to Kenya and say, here is this money because I know that you know this child and that you can reach to them. And so with that, then we have a lot of leakages. And so even when USAID was being closed, I'm sure some of us read that there was only a small percentage of the whole pie that was actually coming down to the ground to do the actual projects, you know. And so most of this was going into administrative work and things to just keep the projects running. And that is not a bad thing, you know. And so while we talk about barriers to localization, then I think we have to think around it holistically. so that then we need to understand that the problem is not only just the person who is not giving, who is not giving you these funds, but also us who have not probably in the past been accountable enough to ensure that we can show where every cent has gone. And so when we speak about beyond rhetoric is, tunasema hatutaki story za jaba. Tunataka, as we speak, we move and we move in unison. And so direct funding is essential. I think we all can agree to that. And I think right now we can agree that while direct funding is essential, all of us have a role to play to make it effective. So to ensure effective localization, direct funding must be prioritized. But then what systems are we putting in place to ensure that even while you are being given the money, that you're going to use it nicely? Companies have audits. It is hard for, this particular donor walking in the streets of let's say, South Africa, who knows of a kid who is in, a rural village in South Africa, for them to send money to this person in the rural village, na mtu asienda kununua mboga instead of doing this work. And so we need to come together. Like we are seeing this problem, I don't think anyone has the solutions to this, not in the global north or in the global south. I think the solutions lie with everyone who is being involved in this matter. And so one of the other things that we saw as barriers is we have short-term projects that come, and a project is 6 months, a year. No one wants to have that type of uncertainty in their lives, And so you lose out experienced people who really understand the problem on the ground, but then the truth of the matter is they have families to feed, And so how then can we look at this? How then can we look at our funding models? And I hope that we can discuss on this topic a bit more, because I see that we have time. And so how then can we make these projects long-lasting but sustainable? If you're coming into a community and doing a certain intervention, the idea for you is not to be there a long time. That's the truth, If you can take the shortest time possible, but still make this thing continue moving forward, in that when you visit 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later, you either find the project running or the problem solved, And so how can we then get access to long-term grants that then assure some of those people who are in these projects that they're sustainable, that their work is sustainable, for them. And so we have some practical tools that we have suggested and that we have used, and that we think if we employ them, they can work. These are not all the tools, because I think the answers lie with us. We have developed the community organizing manual, some of the booklets that have been passed around. The community organizing manual empowers locals to identify needs, coordinate responses. So it is a manual that then allows these local communities to come together, shows them how they can come together, respond, because one of the things that was coming out when COVID came was we had all these humanitarian agencies, who were then locked in wherever countries that they were in. And so they couldn't respond immediately to a thing that, was this week you hear, Nairobi is on lockdown. Next week you hear Africa is on lockdown, And so the people who were closest to this were the local people, who are you and I, So then how do we get the opportunity to have these funds and to have the capacity to do all these things, so that then When this problem comes to us, then as a community, we can organize ourselves, we know how to respond, and we know how to respond effectively. We have the Skiza platform, which enhances communication. So this was a platform that was worked on a few years ago and enhances communication and information sharing among communities, you know, so that when something happens here, you are able to know almost at an instant and enable swift coordination, tracking of resources, and facilitating collective action during emergencies and local initiatives. And we have one of these that we just launched a few months ago. This is called the Africa Knowledge Hub for Children. So what this tool does, this is a tool that we all can access, by the way. You can log into that platform, and we'll be able to share the link or the QR code later. You log into that platform. If you take any data on children, then you have the ability to, whatever you post online, number one, populates on the platform. So if, say, in the morning, I know we had a discussion that there is a particular place that flooded last week. So if we could get such information early, then now you have almost a platform where you can see what is happening, not just in Kenya, but across Africa. So this is a platform which every one of us can onboard. And what that does for us is it allows us to understand what is happening where. Is it urgent? How big is it? Then we are able to also make decisions based on the data that is there. And it populates data from everywhere. It creates metrics for those, and every one of us can log into that platform and as organizations, of course, and input your data. And so I know we have very many tools that we have put into place so that then we assist in visualizing the localization space a bit better.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Round of applause to him. So I'll come back and put emphasis on a few things. Practical tools that would make localization work. We'll all agree that we still don't have the power to make those decisions. Then we came up with the community organizing manual that would reflect to the people, being those who are having those first-hand information. Then the people could be organized into groups, community groupings. Then lastly, they'll have the vision, what they are driving towards. Then another practical tool that Anthony mentioned was revolving around Skiza. And Skiza is basically listening from people. It is coming from it's coming from Swahili word skiza, just as simple as that. So skiza is basically to listen, get what people say that would influence decision making. Then lastly, we just launched the Africa Knowledge Management for Children. It's available online. You can go there, share your work, what you do in your communities. The essence was, assume you are walking in some streets in Kisumu, then you meet a child being violated. Those news would go uncovered. So if you go to our knowledge management platform, you could report at first hand. So again, when coming back to fighting for localization, I think policy advocacy will be very prudent, because that is what will make us get listened. There are some international bodies that do make decisions for us without incorporating our voices. So when we come together, make noise, get listened, then we are driving towards practical localization processes. Collaboration will be key in driving our advocacy work. Just like we told you, we are coordinating a group of child-focused organizations just to ensure that people are not working in silos. Our work could be shared. So what are we taking from all this session? To achieve real change, we must support initiatives that would ensure that local initiatives are funded. We must also ensure that capacities of the locals are built and document our learning lessons from the grassroots levels. That would mark the end of our presentation. But then, as I told you that we are not just going to talk. This is an issue for all of us. We'll come back to some few questions. Understanding localization. Do you think that it works? And what are some of the gaps that are making localization efforts not to take effect? Do you think that our local ideas, our decision-making insights are valued? And what do you think stops them from taking effect? Let him pass the microphone. You want to listen?
Okay, our efforts are working, yes, but then having a fixed mindset, for instance, that it's only through US aid that we are going to get help, will make us not move. We can tap the local resources that we have and still move on.
Okay, she's telling us that we need local resources. Currently, there is a big shift in funding, and normally we beg the global south to make our work productive, which should not be the actual case. We should go think on how we are going to make our local funding. Thank you. I think that was a good one. Yes, Evans?
Yeah, I think localization can work. The only barrier is, let me say, lack of political goodwill or political interest, where I think it was you, Stanley, when you are doing your presentation, there are people who are holding tight to their positions. So if someone sees that this thing is challenging my interest or does not consider my interest, then someone uses their sphere of influence to challenge the localization agenda.
Yes, that was a good one. Normally, the world is being driven on interests, and when people feel like you are going to take their roles, they'll definitely fight you, and this has been an hindrance to localization. Thank you so much, Evans. Yes, my sister?
Well done, a good presentation. For me, localization is the best approach when we were looking at 100 years to come. You can imagine like someone who imagined KSG where we are right now. This is someone who was able to think 100 years to come, where do we want to hold our trainings, our workshop, but we can see now the result. But at that time it was quite expensive. So localization idea is very good. However, I think CSO and NGO, we are the biggest barrier because we have created a culture. Anytime I invite you for anything, there are some attached expectation. Even when we are serving those communities, they have expectation. You are working with a donor, you are a big institution, making localization idea to be unimaginable, yet it's the best approach and the most sustainable. If we remember COVID, quite a number of organizations were closed down, and even now some have never been revived. Because of that idea, we must be given donor funding by a certain donor. So that localization idea, I think right now it should sink more, looking at what has just happened with USAID, and things are happening. Last time was COVID, we don't know what next. So can you maybe help us? How do we balance? We have been used to that pressure that comes with burn rate. So sometimes we even spend a lot of money on things that are not really making sense, just to ensure that you are at 100% burn rate. Maybe help us to balance the two and also managing those expectations. Thank you.
I think I love the insights. It is coming back to us as civil society organizations that we are the barrier ourselves. There are some things we are not doing right, but then we are here today. At the African Institute for Children's Studies, we want to be known to be setting agendas for solutions to take place. So we believe that when we come together, this is not our fight. It is a fight that would involve all of us, have spaces where we can make decisions, where we can get direct funding to continue with the good work. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Leon, representing Kralaf, but I think I'd want to particularly point out the fact that maybe it's also time that we stop existing like handicapped people, that we think beyond always being funded, to find innovative ways to stand on our own feet and help our own people, and that people also believe that they too can be the reason for change, not always expecting a hand being held for them. If you can find innovative ways to drive such an initiative, then I think it would be a better outcome in terms of long-term perspectives.
If I can get him right, he's talking about over-dependency. And this has been a very big syndrome. We want to highly depend on others without coming with our own solutions. I think when we get seated together at the local levels, we can actually come up with some things that would help us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Martha. I work for Childline Kenya. I'm thinking the truth is that we need each other. The Global South needs us, and we need them. That's the truth. And the best way to approach this is to look at it the way you would when you're dating. There's something you're looking for from the other party, and there's something they have seen in you as well. And you walk together a journey, nurturing it, agreeing certain things, disagreeing on some as well. And you continue investing in each other to cement this partnership. So it's not them telling you, it's you agreeing on how to continue engaging. That is how we need to look at this. So that they invest in you and you invest in them as well. But we are used to a situation where we are being told, we are being given, we are being guided. It's like we don't have a say. We do have a say. We know where the shoe pinches. And we are able to talk to our partner that we are dating that actually I need shoe number 40, not 39, you know, something like that. And you're also feeding into them. What do they like? How are you able to support them in their vision and things like that? So if we approach it that way, then it's mutually beneficial, and we therefore make positive difference. We are not competing with anybody at that point. We are growing each other. Yeah, I'm not sure we are there yet, though.
Thank you so much, Martha. Martha is telling us that sometimes we don't reposition ourselves to get. She's reminding us that we ourselves, because even with them, we are not going to manage, but see how we can closely work together, support them as they support us. Thank you so much. And this would bring me to another question. Do we think that the Global South is really supporting us as local institutions? Do you think that they are supporting real localization?
Global South or Global North?
The Global North, sorry, the Global North.
I see a hand there, but let me come online. I think just trying to understand what Martha had said and what Leon has also mentioned. I think what Leon was saying is we almost completely cut off, you know, the Global North from giving us funding. But Martha is saying that we need each other, you know. So we may make mistakes, or Leon is disagreeing to what I'm saying. So we may make mistakes, but then we have the opportunity of agreeing on certain things. And I think it's just the same as independence wasn't gotten in one day, it took a process.
Necessity is the mother of invention. And look at the Europeans existing in a snow-like condition. If you don't think for yourself, no one else will. If we don't stand up to think for ourselves, no one else will. And if we let other people think for us, then we'll just be sheep being led to slaughter, really. And we might say that, yes, that they have goodwill, but at the end of the day, how sustainable is it? We are all crying right now because Trump has decided that he's not going to fund people. How sustainable has the funding they've been giving us been over the years? Back from Moi's time, they've been receiving the funding. How sustainable is it? What can we actually show for it? So back to my point that it might be that, yes, they need us, and yes, they don't. But we're not at level playing grounds. It's not that that they'll do immensely well without us. They might not. But my point is that we need to find strategic points amongst ourselves to rise our own, to improve our caliber, not just be a brand that's always looking for handouts.
Thank you, Leon. As we go to the question that's being answered here, I want to highlight that even the model of aid that we have, if you read Dambisa Moyo's Dead Aid book, says that it was developed, you know, when after World War II and we had European countries which had, you know, were devastated by the World War. And so US put some restrictions on them and told them, if you do this, then we're able to give you aid that is going to be, to allow you to construct. So the whole philosophy on aid that is being done right now was based on, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to behave, and then if you behave in a particular way, then we are going to do this for you. and so the model worked and then was used in Africa for giving aid towards African nations. And I think that is what we've enjoyed until recently when we had that shift.
I think besides the aid model, there is a reality of bias, and that's as deeply entrenched as all the other isms, the racisms and the whatever. So I think on paper, the ideal is that we would have a mutual relationship, but I don't think in reality that is going to be possible for a very long time, because biases are difficult to erase. So I think just learning to be dependent on ourselves, and we are not talking of national government level where, we are in debt because we are constructing roads and what have you. We are talking about on the ground where we can come together, we have resources that we can use. The community is the most enlightened group about their area and their resources. Children belong to us. We've been raising them. Climate is something that we've been working on, our indigenous ways, conserved climate. So we do have something to go back to, as well as, of course, research and something to ground ourselves on. So I think, as Leon has said, necessity is the mother of invention. We were also trained to be dependent. We had a victim, so to speak, mentality. And for a very long time, we found a culture of begging and a culture of helplessness. And so, there are countries that we can actually benchmark on to encourage ourselves, the Singapores, Japan, China. We don't always have to look to the West. We can look to Asia for templates of what other people have done that were in our situation around the same time, that we, post-colonial, around the same time, the Thailands, and I think we can find something to copy and learn from and integrate.
Very good point, sir. So I have a hand there, I have a hand here, and I also have a comment online. So I'll start with the hand there, we'll go to the comment online, then we'll come to this hand here.
And Anthony, while you give the microphone,
okay.
Currently we've seen the USAID withdrawing to give the funding. As we give our general views, what are your thoughts? Do you think that we are going to survive or we are going to die with our work? We could also discuss around that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Gabriel Ochieng. I work for Childline Kenya. I think that the question that you had asked about whether the global north supports us in some way towards self-sustainability, I can say to some extent we have seen some donors that require the building of sustainability into their programming. So even as you do a proposal, you're building on how the community is going to remain as your program ends. Because in the past we have had situations where we come with a solution to the community, then when we leave, there's nothing left. And there's no evidence that there was ever a program. So nowadays, some donors require that. Then we also have some donors that are funding participatory programming, including in monitoring and evaluation. So you have a situation where the solution is being drafted together with the community. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. They are coming with the solution together with the community, so that then the community gets to own that particular solution. So that is some of the things that I can pick that are working well. Regarding what we are, who we are right now, is that over time we have grown to depend on being given things. So at any given time when you look at the news, you are always looking at us seeking for funding from donors, from the World Bank, from USAID. Having worked in USAID in a health facility, even things as little as buckets were bought by USAID. You'd find them branded as USAID. So then this became even more clear when the funds were pulled. Then you saw a situation where people went home, because then you get to discover that most of the workforce was now then employed by USAID. So then this now becomes a wake-up call. It means that then we need to be in charge of our own things. So then the government needs to stop budgeting on the other things that they're budgeting on to start budgeting on these things. So I think that's the only way that we can become better. Thank you.
Thank you. As I read the comment online, Fred Ohidi is saying, I believe localization can be actualized only by adapting to local contexts, building local capacity, and fostering locally led decision making. And I say that we are mentioning everything apart from where the resources are coming from.
Thank you. Maybe I want to, should I say, throw a spanner in the works? Let's agree. We are seeing localization means that the person who is geographically nearest to the incidents is capable to respond effectively to a humanitarian situation or perhaps even development. Agreed? That is the English we are talking about, right? So I have a question. Is this discussion on localization happening in Europe among European humanitarian organizations? They're discussing how to do localization. Beautiful. And in the US. So is it possible to discuss localization and not ask about whether the money and the power is being... Sorry? Did you hear that? Is it possible to discuss localization without referring to shifting of power and shifting of money to local organizations in the global south? No, let's go back to the English definition. We agreed on the English, right? So it has nothing to do with moving money from the global north to the global south. From an English point, correct? We simply say, take care of your business. Who should we be talking to? In my opinion, it's your government, isn't it? We need, you who works in the community, needs to say it in simple Swahili, perhaps not English, so we don't confuse them that we are Europeans. We should tell them in simple Swahili that I am the person who is nearest. What is that Swahili proverb? Fimbo ya mbali hui nyoka, sivyo? That is all we are saying here. So how can we continue talking about, oh, you know, USAID committed 25% of their grants and they are not giving us. So localization is not happening. I'm wondering whether Stanley's question is valid. Who cares whether your localization is real? Is it the North or you and your people? Isn't it? So I think we've been missing the boat. You know, one of my friends says, I really have no business discussing localization because I am local and I'm just living life. When I'm responding to the drought in Mandera, I am just living life. I'm being human being responding to the need around me. And I think if we shift our minds and start thinking about the simple Swahili definition, nyoka aliye mbali anaua. Oh, sio hivyo. Fimbo ya karibu ninaua. That's all we are saying. Now, bring that here and ask ourselves, who should that conversation be going to? Who should that advocacy? For some of us, we are the problem. Because we are based in Nairobi, and we must travel 10 hours to Turkana to do an activity because we don't trust the local person. Hiyo fimbo haiwezi uwa, sivyo? It takes us into really discussing the decentralization of governance. Is devolution really working? You know, one of the things we've put in the law, and tomorrow we'll discuss about it, is the Child Welfare Fund. I don't know how many of us here from Kenya participated in the drafting of the regulations. We are missing out. My opinion is that is not money to go to the State Department for Children's Services. Not that I have anything against them, but fimbo, hiyo Kiswahili mtanisaidia tena. Kwa hiyo tunasema fimbo ya karibu ndiyo itaua nyoka, sivyo? So the fimbo that is karibuest to the child in the street is the neighbor who knows that that child I saw in the street is Mercy's daughter. And they'll go to Mercy in the night. What happened? Did you have a fight with your spouse? Ni nini imefanyika? You don't need someone traveling from Nairobi to go remove children from the street in Kitale. So until we get to that appreciation, but then the person who is doing that, for it should be done systematically. They must do it daily. How can I do work daily and I go back to my children who are hungry? Will you continue doing it? Are you doing public service as a community worker when you're doing that? Yes, that's public service. What should pay for public service? It's the public, isn't it? So we've created a structure in the Child Welfare Fund where you can have taxes being used to pay your fimbo ya karibu so that it is sustainable. Then we don't have to go beg people and tell them, you know, we can manage your money, just give us, you know. Because the elephant in the room in that list was accountability. You know, in my early years, I lived in Liberia, and someone told me someone was given just $6,000. And 2 days later, they flew to America to go and do shopping. Is it possible that some of us will be given money and they will disappear? Isn't it? They will not even go far, watatoka tu hapo Bomet na wende Nakuru shopping. Just because they got a grant. So the accountability question, are there models of doing that? Those are the conversations we need to have. Not because we're expecting money from the USAID, but because we believe that fimbo ya karibu ndio itaua nyoka. So I'm hoping we really rethink about that, organize ourselves, develop evidence, because that's what they talked about, a community organized to be able to do this. Do they have evidence that there's something urgent and they have capacity to respond to it? Are their voices getting to decision-making table around how public finance is being used? Because until you do that, we are talking to the wrong person. I'm glad USAID was shut down. It's an opportunity for us to get our act right. Something burning? Done. Great. So thank you very much. Give a round of applause to this team from the consortium. And we are ahead of time, so please go have the top layer of tea and I don't know what else they're serving. And then see you tomorrow at 8 a.m., God willing. Thank you very much. May God bless you.